In Gorman, Maryland, a young woman returns from a hard day at work, but she's not planning a quiet night at home. She refuses to tell anyone where she's going, even her mother. When she never comes back, no one has a clue where to start looking for her. The answers may lie within the hour before she disappears. As she readies herself for her date with destiny, questions linger. Who was she meeting? And why the secrecy? And what happened in that final hour before she disappeared? An hour that would change the town forever. Living in a small town can be peaceful for some and stifling for others. Everybody knows one another, and news can spread like wildfire. So when Cathy Ford goes missing in Gorman, Maryland, it not only leaves a hole in her family and friends' lives, but also leaves the community with more questions than answers. In a town this small, someone should know something. Questions surface about where Cathy Ford may have gone, or worse, has something terrible happened to her? On the afternoon of February 17th, 1988, Cathy Ford returns home after a long day at work.
Working in a restaurant can be a lot of fun, but it also tends to be exhausting. It can be very fast-paced with a lot to do, and people are usually pretty tired by the end of the day.
In a hurry and a bit flustered, Cathy is gearing up for a night she won't forget. Gorman, Maryland is quintessential small-town America. With a population barely over 100, it's safe to say that it's a place where everybody knows everybody.
It's a tough area with tough, scrabbly people, heavily Appalachian, of course. It's in the Appalachians. But there are a lot of good people there.
Named after United States Senator Arthur P. Gorman, it sits along the North Branch Potomac River in southern Garrett County, Maryland.
Across the bridge lies Gormania, West Virginia, which is an unincorporated community with a population only slightly larger than Gorman's.
It was a very big county, but very, very low in population. It's at the headwaters of the Potomac River, which is just like a little creek. And that creek divides Gorman, Maryland, and Gormania, West Virginia.
Cathy works hard, and today was no exception. In the final hour that anyone can account for her whereabouts, Cathy decides that she must freshen up.
Cathy's parents owned a restaurant on one side of the bridge.
While cynics might attribute its success to lack of competition, the Old Mill restaurant is popular with locals and tourists alike. They have good food and mainly cater to people passing through. But there are a few regulars who eat there every day. Wanting to be presentable, Cathy decides that simply changing her outfit would not be enough. If her actions are any indication, Cathy's plans do not involve sitting at home alone. But she hasn't told anyone what those plans are. Her co-workers wonder if it has something to do with a certain phone call from earlier in the day. On the morning of February 17th, Cathy is going about her business at the restaurant.
She comes in early to set the place up before any of the customers arrive.
When the telephone suddenly rings, Cathy answers it, probably expecting the usual type of call. What time are you open? Can I order something for pickup? Normal restaurant business. This, however, was not a normal phone call.
A man claims to be a magistrate working at Mount Storm in Grant County, West Virginia. He wants Cathy to meet him at his office at 3 p.m. that day.
Confused, Cathy asks what this is all about. The magistrate tells her that he needs to talk to her about some checks from the restaurant because he suspects they are dealing with check fraud.
Is he accusing her parents of committing check fraud? Or saying that one of their customers paid with bad checks? It's not really clear, and we also don't know how seriously Cathy takes this call.
Cathy continues on with her day until about 1 p.m. when the phone rings again. Cathy answers it, and once again she hears a man's voice.
This other waitress, Pat Parker, she could hear the conversation, or at least Cathy's part of it.
This time, the voice claims to be an undercover cop, and he warns Cathy that her family's restaurant may be under investigation.
He says that some businesses are suspected of selling alcohol to minors, so the police are running a sting operation.
Cathy finally said, "Who is this?" And so whoever it was told her some more.
Seeming to take this call seriously, Cathy continues to listen.
Why would an undercover detective warn Cathy about a possible sting operation?
And then she hung up and told them that she had to go meet somebody.
When her mother asks Cathy who's on the phone, Cathy refuses to answer. Her mother keeps pressing, and Cathy finally says, "I can't tell you, he'll lose his job."
Refusing to answer any more questions, she leaves.
Even though we have no idea who was on the phone with Cathy, it was clearly someone she knew. Why would she show such concern for a stranger?
Later that afternoon, Cathy returns to the Old Mill restaurant, and her co-workers can't help but notice that she looks different.
It's clear she's put some effort into her appearance and looking good. She seems to be in a hurry.
Only there to pick up her purse, Cathy very quickly turns around and starts heading back out.
Her behavior is evasive, to say the least.
When asked repeatedly where she's going, Cathy refuses to answer. Borrowing her father's truck, Cathy drives off to a destination unknown.
So she left. Most people believe, at least originally, that she went north into Maryland. That kind of got twisted around by a couple people, and she went south into West Virginia. But I had statements even from a relative who lived on that road, Cathy's relative, who said she saw her Ford Bronco going north, but that ended up being disputed. So that was the last anybody saw her.
as the hot shower washes away any trace of the kitchen. What was going through Cathy's mind? Is she excited about the secret meeting? Is she nervous? What was waiting for her once this hour was up? On the afternoon of February 17th, 1988, 19-year-old Cathy Ford returns from a hard day at work. She decides to get cleaned up, as if she has important plans. Earlier that day, Cathy receives a couple of mysterious phone calls. One from a magistrate who wants to meet with her at 3 p.m. When questioned repeatedly, Cathy refuses to say where she is going. If Cathy plans to meet with the magistrate in Grant County, West Virginia, she still has time to get there. She takes her dad's car and leaves, and is never seen again. Then again, maybe Cathy's plans have something to do with the second phone call, from a man who claims to be an undercover police officer. The answers may lie within the hour before she disappears.
Why would a magistrate want to meet with Cathy? Shouldn't he really be meeting with her parents? She refuses to tell anyone who he is. Is he a friend or an acquaintance? Is Cathy trying to protect him for tipping her off that there may be an investigation into her family?
When Cathy doesn't return home later that night, her family becomes concerned. And even though she's only been gone a few hours, Cathy's mum calls the police.
It's been my experience that families know best when it comes to their loved ones. And if they see something or know something that happened that's out of the ordinary, especially with involving a child, if they're not home by a certain hour, and then 2 or 3 hours go by or whatever. Cathy's only 19. She obviously has habits that their family know about. So when she doesn't show up at home, they have just reason to be concerned and contact the police. And it's always, always family knows best. And the police should react to that instead of waiting the policy of 24 or 48 hours, which can be too late.
Catherine Denise Ford is born on July 20th, 1968, in Wilmington, Delaware. She lives with her parents, Rosalie and Richard Ford Jr., and her 3 brothers, one of whom is Cathy's twin. When Cathy is a teenager, her family moves to Gorman, Maryland, which is about 260 miles from Wilmington.
The Fords purchase the Old Mill restaurant and turn it into a successful family business.
Cathy attends Del Castle Technical School and graduates in 1986 with a degree in childcare and cooking.
Part of this training serves her well for working in the family restaurant.
At 5'9" and 140 pounds, Cathy is a beautiful young woman. Those who know her say she is nice, well-liked, sensible and reliable.
She's been dating her boyfriend Darvin Moon since first moving to Gorman 3 years ago.
It seems as if everyone likes Cathy. She has regular customers who she sees every day, and some of them are more like friends.
One of her regulars is a guy named Paul Frell, who has lunch at the Old Mill restaurant every day. He's 12 years older than Cathy, but the two have a special bond because they're both twins.
Cathy's parents owned a restaurant on one side of the bridge, and Paul Farrell's family owned a convenience store gas station on the other side of the bridge. I call this case the true Twin Peaks because Cathy Ford was a twin, Paul Farrell was a twin, and they were from the twin towns of Gorman and Gormania. That was just the beginning of the twists and turns and oddities and coincidences of this case.
Since receiving the mysterious phone calls at the restaurant, Cathy has been acting strangely and secretively, or so her mother believes.
When her mom asks her point blank if she knows the caller, Cathy says yes, but then no, as if she knows she let something slip.
Whether she knows the caller or not, it's not clear whether she rushes home to get clean for him or someone else. And now she's vanished into thin air.
Her boyfriend Darvin immediately begins to search for Cathy. He and her family put up missing persons posters all over town.
Her parents turned their restaurant into a makeshift headquarters for the search for Cathy. Her 8x10 prom portrait is prominently displayed on top of a cooler for all to see.
Citizens from both sides of the bridge, Maryland and West Virginia, come out to show support. Cathy's parents hand out flyers with her photo on them to anyone who might be interested in helping them with the search.
Aside from spreading the word as much as they can, Cathy's family also organized search parties to comb the area, looking for any clues as to her whereabouts.
One of the leaders of the search parties is Paul Frell. As deputy sheriff, it's his job to look for missing people. But as a friend of Cathy's and a regular at the restaurant, it would seem to be more personal to him. Cathy's parents are so thrilled to have him on the team because of their relationship with him, and they also think he was a heck of a nice guy.
A total of 3 police officers from Gormania are involved in the search, as well as members of both the West Virginia and Maryland State Police.
It's absolutely important to get out there and search as soon as possible. You establish their normal travel routes, where they may be. You start to find if there's a deviant, if someone sees them disappear down a side street or off in another vehicle, they may need medical attention, they may need help. So it's very important in those first few hours to get on the case ASAP.
The investigation into Cathy's disappearance takes a strange turn when another woman Cathy's age comes forward to talk to police.
She tells a story that is oddly familiar, so familiar that the officer can't help but be concerned.
At approximately 10:50 a.m. on February 17th, Robin Tichnell receives a phone call from a man claiming to be a magistrate.
This is the same day that Cathy got a call from a magistrate.
The man claims to be conducting an investigation about someone Robin knows, and he wants her to meet him between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. at Mount Storm Fire Hall.
Confused and a bit suspicious, Robin asks for more information about the investigation. But the more questions she asks, the more uncomfortable the magistrate seems to get, and he refuses to answer any of her questions.
The man tells her he'll call back another time and hangs up. As if this isn't strange enough, another young woman comes forward with a story to tell.
This woman works in the post office in Gormania, where she's filling in for a coworker on February 17th, and her story is even weirder.
An elderly woman named Viola Knotts, who lives across the street from the post office, receives a call from a magistrate who tells her to deliver a message to Rose Bosley at the post office.
He claims that the mail carrier's car is broken down, so that Rose needs to come pick him up. However, Rose knows that the location he gives her is no place the mail carrier would ever be, so she ignores him.
A number of women had been receiving phone calls that were just pranks. Hey, I just stopped to help your husband. His car broke down at such and such intersection, and he wants you to come over and pick him up. And the woman would drive there, no husband, no broken down car, no nothing. Nobody was ever hurt. They were just pranks.
Whoever this caller is, he can't be a magistrate. There are only 2 magistrates that work at Mount Storm, and they're both women.
Digging a little deeper, investigators learn that over a dozen women receive calls from a man claiming to be a magistrate around the time of Cathy's disappearance. And he always tries to lure them to remote areas of West Virginia and Maryland. The entire town is concerned about this new revelation, especially since no one has been able to find Cathy Ford.
Unfortunately, it's usually in retrospect. You know the pattern after it's happened, and then you have to decide, is this the actions of a person who's going to become a serial killer? You don't have any warning that this is going to happen. Cathy has not been harmed yet. We don't know if there's anything wrong. You could be on the verge of looking for a psychopath or a serial killer based on these series of phone calls. They all start somewhere, and you have to use that as evidence to say that this is what could have happened.
Who called Cathy Ford on February 17th, 1988? And why did she rush home to get cleaned up? Is she planning to meet someone she knows or a total stranger?
With so many conflicting witness reports, it's going to be almost impossible to piece together Cathy's actual whereabouts the night she disappeared.
Investigators need to answer at least one of these questions if they hope to find the popular 19-year-old before it's too late. On February 17th, 1988, 19-year-old Cathy Ford hurries home from work and begins to clean herself up. Earlier that day, Cathy receives a phone call from someone claiming to be a magistrate who wants to meet with her at 3 p.m. Investigators learn that over a dozen women receive calls from a magistrate asking them to go to remote areas of West Virginia and Maryland. And now Cathy is missing, and no one can find any trace of her. As she continues to get ready, Cathy has no idea that several other women have been called by this magistrate, and that he's definitely a phony. It probably doesn't even cross her mind that he might want to hurt her.
This guy claims that her family's restaurant is part of some check fraud scheme. Maybe Cathy just wanted to quietly help her parents without alerting anyone as to what was going on.
After all initial attempts to find Cathy fail, a woman named Vonda Moreland comes forward, wanting to organize an official search party.
She talks to Paul Frell and another officer, and both agree it's a great idea.
But only an hour and a half later, Paul calls Vonda Moreland and asks her to cancel the search. She's unable to do so in time, so Paul requests they stay away from Bismarck and Cherry Roads. When Vonda asks why, Paul explains that some evidence has just been found in that area, and he doesn't want it to get contaminated by the search party.
The fact that Paul has found evidence must have been great news to Vonda and to everyone involved in the search for Cathy Ford.
In another strange turn of events, Cathy's family receives a letter. Not from Cathy, but from someone who claims to be with Cathy.
The letter is postmarked February 29, 1988, and is from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is about 2.5 hours away by car.
The letter says, "The only crime here was we had to get rid of the old man's Bronco right away. Cathy is 19, an adult, and we had to leave fast. We came into some dangerous money, so here is some money on the Bronco. She will call you when she feels it's safe to do so. Cathy made me write to you so you wouldn't worry."
The envelope contains $200 in $20 bills, not much of a down payment on a truck.
The first real break in the case occurs on March 8th, when Cathy's boyfriend, Darvin Moon, and his father find what appears to be Cathy's father's truck in the woods. Rumors of smoke hanging over the area on February 17th, the day Cathy disappeared, caused Darvin and his father to search the area. They find the truck very close to Stony River.
This truck is burned beyond recognition. Now, at first blush, you have to take it in and do a full forensic scan. You may find bone fragments, teeth. You could find jewelry that hasn't melted or something that gives you an idea of who and what was in the vehicle. When you're building a case, everything becomes circumstantial evidence if you don't have any prime proof. And that's what this burnt vehicle is. It's your first substantial piece of circumstantial evidence to say something's being hidden, somebody's trying to hide something.
The main thing to be learned from this burnt-out vehicle is that the fire was intentionally set, probably to destroy evidence. And for the most part, it's worked.
The truck is found approximately 500 yards from the trailer which Paul Frell has been renting, in an area that he asked Vonda Moreland not to search. On the afternoon of February 17th, before smoke is spotted hanging over Stony River, Cathy continues to prepare for some unknown meeting or event. Is she planning to meet someone at Stony River? Does she know Paul Frell lives near there?
As a deputy sheriff, Paul could know enough to warn Cathy about a possible sting operation. And if he were to do so, Cathy might not want to get him in trouble by revealing his identity. She might even feel the need to meet him somewhere to get some more information. But how would that lead to her disappearance and her father's truck being set on fire?
Family and friends are very worried about Cathy. She's been gone for 3 weeks, and the only trace of her is a burned-out truck and a strange letter.
There's no evidence that Cathy's body was in the truck. Even if an accelerant was used and the vehicle burned at a very high temperature for a very long time, there would have been something left behind if she'd been in there. Bones, teeth, jewelry. She's definitely not there.
Does no body mean there's a chance that Cathy is still alive?
The letter says the only crime here was we had to get rid of the old man's Bronco right away. Why? No one would know Cathy was missing for hours. She could easily drive to Pittsburgh, where the letter was posted, and ditch the truck there. And why wouldn't she write the letter herself? Nothing about this letter seems legitimate.
While they don't find Cathy's body in the burned-out truck, they do find a watch belonging to her nearby. A search of Paul's trailer reveals blood under a brand-new carpet, as well as on the walls and ceiling of the bedroom. However, this blood is not conclusively determined to be Cathy's. When other officers question Paul, he says that he had nothing to do with Cathy's disappearance, and that he and Cathy have been having an affair for some time.
While it's not proof of anything, there is a lot of circumstantial evidence piling up. Circumstantial evidence can make a case, but you need a complete chain of circumstantial evidence from the time of the offense to the murder. So they may be missing a piece or two of that. So what they do is arrest the person as a prime suspect. Hopefully they can get a break and get enough evidence during the next 20, 40, 80 hours, whatever the case they're holding this person for, and then be able to charge them so that the person doesn't flee the jurisdiction, disappear, and make it impossible to make an arrest later on.
His fellow officers arrest Paul Frell and take him for further questioning. As the afternoon of February 17th grows later, Cathy puts the finishing touches on her hair and makeup.
If Paul is telling the truth about having an affair with Cathy, this could explain why she wanted to look her best, and why her father's truck is found near Paul's trailer. But it doesn't explain the fire, the letter, or why she disappears.
If only Cathy would take a moment to tell someone where she's going and why. But whatever her plans are, she seems determined to keep them to herself. She writes no note. She makes no phone calls. Her focus remains unbroken for 1 entire hour. On February 17th, 1988, 19-year-old Cathy Ford makes herself up as if she's going somewhere special. Later, her vehicle is found burned in the woods. But there's no sign of Cathy. Paul Frell, a deputy sheriff and regular customer of Cathy's, is arrested based on circumstantial evidence and brought in for questioning. But investigators are still no closer to finding Cathy and don't know if she's dead or alive.
She seems to want to make an impression, but on whom?
She sees her regular customers, like Paul Frell, every day in the restaurant. Whether they're just friends or romantically involved, it doesn't seem likely that she'd need to go to this much trouble. On the other hand, she could be planning to meet with a mysterious phone caller, the magistrate, and then go to Paul's place after. Or maybe to see her boyfriend, Darwin. The only one who knows for sure is Cathy, and she's not telling anyone. Relying on the circumstantial evidence, investigators wonder if Paul Frell knows more about Cathy's disappearance than he is saying. But what do they really know about the young deputy sheriff? Paul Frell was born in 1956. He attends Southern High School, which is the same school that Cathy attends several years later.
Paul is very athletic and excels at boxing and baseball. After high school, he enlists in the Army and spends some time away from home.
Upon returning home, Paul works for his parents in their country store in Gorman, which is just across the bridge from the Old Mill restaurant. And then he joins the police force. In January of 1988, Paul becomes a deputy sheriff of Gorman.
He had just gotten a job as a sheriff's deputy in Grant County, and he had to live or have an address in West Virginia to become a West Virginia deputy. So he rented this trailer home, but he was still living in Oakland with his girlfriend, who also was named Cathy.
Paul is dating a woman named Cathy Bernard, who has 2 children from a previous relationship.
Paul meets Cathy Ford at the Old Mill restaurant where he eats every day. The two feel a strange connection, even though they are both already in other relationships.
They have some things in common. They both have twin brothers, and they both help their parents out with a family business. They enjoy talking to each other, but they feel the need to keep their friendship a secret.
Paul's girlfriend may suspect something is up. When she asks him about Cathy Ford, he claims he used to date her, but his brother later says that he doesn't believe this is true. While doing laundry, Paul's girlfriend finds something strange in his pocket. A note that talks about setting people up and fake IDs. When she asks Paul about it, he says that it has something to do with someone trying to trick local businesses into selling liquor to minors. Which sounds a lot like what the unknown caller had said to Cathy Ford on the telephone. While investigating the strange calls to Cathy and more than a dozen other women, investigators discover that many of them are coming from an apartment in Gorman that Paul sometimes shares with his brother. When confronted with this information, Paul admits to making strange phone calls to women, including some to libraries in which he posed as a doctor and asked women to read sexually explicit material to him. But he continues to swear that he had nothing to do with Cathy's disappearance. The calls to Cathy and other young women seem odd to investigators.
Even stranger are the calls made to libraries in an attempt to entice women to read sexually explicit passages to him.
Admitting to this strange behavior doesn't help Paul Frell's case, especially when combined with all the circumstantial evidence. Cathy believes that a magistrate wants to meet with her, and therefore she wants to look presentable and professional. But she has no idea who that magistrate actually is. To Cathy, he's just a voice on the telephone, one that she clearly believes is trustworthy.
Paul admits to making these phone calls, but there's another thing that doesn't make sense. If he and Cathy are really having an affair, as he claims, why would he need to pretend to be a magistrate in order to get her to meet him?
Piecing together everything they know based on the circumstantial evidence, investigators feel they have a pretty good theory as to what happened on February 17, 1988. They believe that in the morning, Paul calls Cathy, pretending to be a magistrate, asking her to meet him.
In the afternoon, he calls her again. This time he tells the truth and gives her the tip about the undercover investigation affecting her family. She's grateful, and she won't tell her mom who he is because he could lose his job for tipping her off.
Investigators hypothesize that one of these calls inspires Cathy to get dressed up and go to a meeting. Whether she believes it's with a magistrate or an unknown undercover cop or with Paul is unclear. Based on the bloodstains in a cigarette butt, investigators theorize that Cathy eventually winds up at Paul's trailer, where they suggest that he murders her. And then, in what investigators suggest is an attempt to destroy evidence, they believe that Paul lights her vehicle on fire. As Cathy prepares to add the finishing touches to her appearance, she surely must be thinking about the person she's about to meet. Does she know who it is? Or does she think it's a stranger?
Her co-workers noticed that she wore more jewelry than normal when she went off to her mysterious meeting, which could be a clue as to who she was supposed to meet.
Soon Cathy will leave to meet her destiny, and authorities will be left to piece together her final moments the hard way, starting from this strangely intense hour. After selecting the perfect outfit, Cathy begins picking out jewelry.
It wasn't the norm for Cathy to wear this much jewelry, so there had to have been a reason for it.
Whoever she's meeting is going to be very impressed. In January of 1989, the trial of Paul Frell begins. The prosecution paints a picture of him killing Cathy in his trailer. They call a neighbor of Paul's to the stand, and then she tells a story that some find hard to believe.
She says that on the afternoon of February 17, 1988, she hears banging and terrified screams coming from his trailer. Then a gunshot, and the screaming suddenly stops.
Kim Nelson goes on to testify that the next day, she sees Paul carrying an old carpet out of his trailer. When she asks him why, he tells her it's stained and has animal odors.
Neither his girlfriend or his landlord has ever noticed stains or odors in there.
Richard Williams, an FBI handwriting expert, testifies that the handwriting on both the letter and the envelope sent to Cathy's parents is Paul Frell's. One of the young women receiving strange phone calls testifies and IDs Paul Frell's voice. She says he also asked for her sister's number.
There's a lot of evidence, but it's mostly circumstantial. Will it be enough to persuade a jury?
Time is getting short, but Cathy has finally done her preparations. Or is she? She'd better hurry or she might be late.
It seems like there's always just one more thing to do.
The defense admits that Paul made some phone calls and mailed the letter, but is adamant that he had nothing to do with Cathy's disappearance.
I've seen this in a number of cases that people become very afraid when they realize they're a suspect and sometimes do stupid things that actually digs them into a bigger hole. And one thing he did was drive up into Pennsylvania and mail a letter to Cathy's mom that just said, "Dear Mom, I'm okay. I just had to get away. Here's some money to help with everything." And so he mailed it. Paul started getting implicated, and eventually he became afraid.
The defense argues that everything Paul did that makes him look suspicious was done out of fear, not guilt. But in the end, the jury disagrees. Based solely on circumstantial evidence, the jury finds Paul Frell guilty of kidnapping, arson, and second-degree murder. He's sentenced to life with mercy for the kidnapping, 5 to 18 years for second-degree murder, and 1 to 3 years for third-degree arson. Paul Frell's conviction is upheld by the West Virginia Supreme Court in 1990, and then again by the Supreme Court of Arkansas in 1996. For friends and family of Cathy Ford, there is at least a partial sense of closure, in spite of the fact that Cathy's body has never been found. In the aftermath of Cathy's disappearance, questions still linger around the mysterious hour leading up to that fateful event. Something hung in the air, an undisclosed secret tucked away in the moments before her vanishing act. Maybe it was just the covert meeting with Paul, or perhaps it was something else. Over time, third-party investigations into Paul's conviction call into question the credibility of witness statements relied upon by the prosecution. On January 12, 2001, Governor Cecil Underwood commutes the sentence of Paul Frell from 3 consecutive terms, plus a 1 to 3 years, which were to run consecutively, one after the other, to 3 concurrent terms, which means Frell is serving them all at once. This has the effect of making Frell eligible for parole as early as the spring of 2002. On May 26, 2004, after serving 15 years, Paul Frell is granted release by the State Parole Board. While not exonerated for his crimes, Paul Frell is now a free man and is living in Gormania again. The local residents are divided as to whether he is guilty or innocent of the crimes for which he was convicted. In the end, the mystery of Cathy Ford's disappearance only seems to deepen. Officially, Cathy is dead, and her family is absolutely convinced of that. Paul Frell served 18 years in prison for her murder. But some people believe she's still out there somewhere, living a whole new life. We'll probably never know the entire truth, and this adds an eerie touch to the final chapter of her story.